You're right on time for the part two of a conversation that has got a lot of people talking over the past couple of weeks. It is one with several ramifications about the second most powerful arm of government, that is the Nigerian legislature, and of course the upper chamber of the National Assembly, which has been embroiled in a scandal, a controversy that continues to grab the attention and the imagination of Nigerians within and outside the shores of this country. It started with what appeared to be a simple routine activity, which has snowballed now into becoming something much bigger that has sought the attention as well as the comments of thought leaders, political groups, sociocultural groups, and the likes. We're still staying with the Senate controversy, where you have at the center of it Senator Natasha and the Senate President embroiled in a back and forth around mismanagement of funding, which was one of those allegations that was leveled against the senator, who appears to be at odds with the entire Nigerian Senate, and a Senate President whose reputation apparently is beginning to haunt his public image. But of course, what does this mean for Nigeria as a country, and what kind of impact will this have on the governance process? We have with us in the studio a public affairs commentator, one who is not particularly shy of sharing his 2 cents on some of these hot topics. Emmanuel Osemeke has joined us this morning, and we're pleased to have him. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
Right, where do we start from? First of all, your impression of what has happened over the past week. You know, started from a regular routine reallocation of seats based on the Senate provisions to what Nigerians perceived was marginalization or the overbearing tendencies of men to always take advantage of women. What do you make of it?
I think, first of all, the Senate President first is the number 3 citizen of the Federation. I think, first of all, he owes Nigerians a very big apology for bringing the entire country and, of course, the parliament, which is the number 1 institution in democracy, to disrepute. Having said this, I'm not saying that he's guilty or he's not guilty. I'm talking about his inability to manage the Senate and, of course, the National Assembly, devoid of one form of scandal or controversy per quarter. While he was the Minister for Niger Delta Affairs, he had his own fair share of controversies, to the point that a lady alleged that she slapped him. And also, don't forget the infamous honorable of the mic. So if you look at how the Senate President, Senator Akpabio, has managed the Senate from when he became the Senate President, he hasn't really done pretty well in comparison to all other Senate Presidents we've had. I mean, don't forget we've had what is his name? Evans, Chubo Kadibo, Pius Anyim, Kenan Namani, Wabara, David Mark, what's his name?
Some of whom have left the office unceremoniously, I might add.
Yeah, I mean, quite a number of them, from NRM to Kenan Namani, was serious, I mean, all kinds of turmoil. But of course, you will agree with me that that turmoil at the time was engineered by the executive arm. It was also a learning curve for the nation at the time, because we were just getting, hang of democracy again after that protracted military rule. But if you take a look at the years of David Mark, he was a man who steered the ship properly. He had command of the seats. He had respect for his colleagues. Where his colleagues erred or misunderstood or misinterpret their rules or the Constitution, most often you will see him, he will listen, then he will tell his colleagues that I want to rule you out of order because this is what you've done wrong, or this is what...
You're saying there's always an arm around a senator when he's speaking out of turn.
Always, always. If you look at the days of Senator Bukola Saraki, which was also very tumultuous with the executive, you know, and of course this the parliament having these challenges because they had their own mindsets. And he was one Senate president who was practically in the courts almost throughout his tenure. But you could see that at some point, even this Senator Akpabio, you know, challenged the Senate president in many occasions. And you would see how Bukola Saraki was able to navigate without maligning or disrespecting any of them. Even, I think it was that eighth Senate that had quite a number of women, and we didn't have any of these shenanigans that we're hearing today. So back to the issue of Senator Akpabio, why I said he has mismanaged that office and that position is that, you know, high offices come with higher responsibilities. And it is important that you understand that office. And a man who does not want to listen to advice most often always fall into troubled waters. This should be like the second or the third time he's having this, you know, back and forth with Senator Natasha. And when you listen to the Senate president speak, he smacks of a lot of arrogance. He smacks a lot of, he speaks with a lot of, you know, with condescending tone most often. I listened to him speak to Senator Ndume at some point. I listened to him speak to Senator Yari at the beginning. I listened to him speak to Senator Iriti Kengibe, who, funny enough, taking sides with the Senate president on this matter. Now, for me, I think from what I've read and what I've found out is that the challenge began in this particular time where, you know, Senator Akpoti believed she was disrespected, and that's why she interpreted it to be harassment. You know, with the change of seats, you know, she said it's the third time her seat was being changed. That normally what usually happens is that if there's going to be any changes on the floor of the Senate, either you're sitting or what have you, an email will be sent or an SMS will be sent explaining why, okay, going forward, you're going to be sitting in this particular location because of A, B, C. He said that was not done. That's one. Two, if you're going to be removed or made the chairman or whatever, a letter will be sent or an email will be sent and it will be clearly explained. Because the truth is, the Senate president is first amongst equal. So they are one and the same. He's not their boss. It's just that someone must lead. So, but he appears to present himself like an emperor. And when you have strong personalities like Natasha Akpoti, you don't expect her to budge. So, unfortunately, all these shenanigans is happening because Senator Akpabio has failed to manage that position properly.
You're saying, irrespective of what the facts may show,
yes,
he still should take responsibility for this fallout?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll give you an example. When Senator Akpoti was asked to change her seat, because from the explanation we've gotten, some members of the Senate from other political parties moved to APC. And the way they sit is that the opposition sits on the left of the Senate president and the majority sit on the right. That has been the practice. Now, some time ago, there were defections to APC, so their numbers swelled. Senator Akpoti's seat was changed. She didn't like it, so I think they had a private discussion. She now went to that upper level, to that position, and begged to be there. They were fine with it. But in recent past, there were more defections from Labour Party, from PDP, and from other political parties to APC. And they also made subsequent adjustments. And I believe she feels that she's being targeted because she felt that there are other people who sat next to her, but they were not moved. and that she was now moved to an obscure position, but that's a different conversation. But the bane of the matter was that there was no prior communication. It's like you just come into the office, this is where your office used to be, all of a sudden you find out that all your things have been moved to another office without prior. I mean, you won't find it funny.
Yeah. There are some Nigerians who say, listen, while this is good for the gossip column in a newspaper or for just banter, you know, why are we as a nation focused on this matter almost 2 weeks now? What do you think, using this conversation as a backdrop, what do you think the implication of this on the governance process, or is there any implication on the governance of this country at all?
If you recall, after the 2023 general elections, it was very clear that the sitting government, you know, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, did not receive the most popular vote. So he came in as the most unpopular president ever in the history of Nigeria. Most unpopular.
You have to provide some context.
I'll bring you context.
With the slimmest margins.
With the slimmest margin.
The popular vote.
Well, he did not have the overwhelming, you know, so he won the election by the results, you know, declared by INEC. He defeated his closest rival by about 1.9 million, about 2 million votes. Then, of course, you know, the other part. But if you merge, if you combine the second and the third results, you would see clearly the majority of the populace went for the opposition. It doesn't matter if the mathematics is mathing for either of them to win or not. But the fact, you know, shows clearly in the past, when you see the winner, for example, when President Muhammadu Buhari won his 2019 election, he defeated his closest rival by almost 2.5 or 2.7 million votes. And if you add the second, third, and fourth, they still didn't beat him. In 2015, he defeated President Jonathan at the time with about 2 million votes or 2.1 million votes. If you add President Jonathan's result and the third person, President Muhammadu Buhari still defeated them. If you go in history, you will see, but for the first time in Nigeria, the second and the third result, if you merge it, they beat the winner hands down, which shows you the direction of the nation. And so I make that bold statement to say that he came in as president, but quite unpopular because he didn't receive the volume of votes that his predecessors normally would have. But that's, by the way, somebody can argue that later. And which meant that the government came in with a deficit, trust deficit, and they needed to build that trust. And most often, when a government comes in with that level of deficit, what you do, most people say, you know, political economists say, or political scientists say, is that you build what you call elite consensus. Because when you build the elite consensus, it will dovetail into the populace. And by so doing, you show up that level of trust. And in Nigeria, for many years, there has been trust deficit between the people and the government. Now, the parliament is supposed to be the people's house. The parliament is supposed to be the place where the voice of the people is heard through their constituent representative or their senatorial representatives. Now, Senator Akpabio represents one of the senatorial representatives, ditto Senator Akpoti. Now, the two of them have this bickering for whatever is worth, which shouldn't even be a problem. But it's a problem because we are talking about the number 3 citizen of Nigeria, which invariably means that, God forbid, if anything happens tomorrow, before to the president and the vice president, that's the man that's going to be the president of Nigeria, pending on when the election is conducted.
And why do you share this feeling that he's not, you know, conducting himself above board?
I think one of the challenges he probably may be grappling with is the fact that he was a governor. I mean, he was a local government chairman, then I think commissioner, then became a governor. And the type of politics we play at the state level is like, and the governors are like emperors. They speak and everybody listens because they control the purse 100%. I mean, even the state assemblies don't come back at them. If you recall, when he left office and enthroned Emmanuel, Governor Udom Emmanuel, they fell out. They fell out for practically 7 years or 6.5 years. Let me be magnanimous with the number. But fortunately for him, he's in the opposition today. PDP still holds sway in the state with the current Governor who is a pastor. That man has extended an olive branch to all the former governors. And so he carries everybody along. So somewhat, there is some level of, contribution at that level. I believe for somebody at with the stature of Senator Godswill Akpabio, the uncommon governor that many of us loved so much, during his days as governor, I think he has mismanaged, the fortune God has given him, the opportunity and the privileges God has given him. I believe he's a good man. I mean, if you go to Akwa Ibom State, you could see clearly that he's a man who understood what it is to deliver for his people. Obong Victor began the work. He came as governor. He continued. Only wise men continue from where their predecessors stopped. I mean, for me, I feel that it only takes a naive person to abandon the project of his predecessors and begin a fresh project. Because clearly, when you continue from where your predecessors started, you take glory for the completion. And you write it that you are the one who created it. So if you go through Akwa Ibom State, almost every part of Akwa Ibom is motorable, and standard is Abuja standard, if not better. So he did fantastically well. He built the state. He invested the state money. And don't forget that during his tenure, the state made quite a chunk of money as a result of the unfortunate issue with Cross River State, which became a landlocked state as a result of the Bakassi issue. So all the nautical miles, whatever funds that were supposed to go to Cross River, went to Akwa Ibom State, and still goes to Akwa Ibom State, reasonably, and of course River State. So I believe that posterity has given Senator Akpabio a lot of, goodness, and I believe that he's a man who should function with grace and candor. He should not be a man who should be seen, or there shouldn't be any iota of arrogance or condescending. What's the word now? He should not be a man who speaks to his fellow man or women, in a condescending manner. You see it from his voice, his tone, and his choice of words. I think Senator Akpabio actually needs to go to communication school.
Yeah, but I mean, commentators like you, for instance, speak very critically of Akpabio's personality or his management of the Nigerian Senate.
Yes.
But the people who are closest to him, the senators who spend week in, week out with him on a regular basis in plenary, outside of plenary, his peers, right? The ones who decided to make him their leader, are speaking with one voice in support of him. And it's safe to say that they know him better than most Nigerians. So what do you make of that contradiction? I mean, he's taking a bashing in the public space, but his colleagues are saying, listen, don't even think about it. We're not even thinking about impeaching him. And they have shown their support and solidarity with the Senate president.
Okay, so I'll start with saying to you that we do not need the senators to impeach Senator Akpabio, because we know they will not. No, they will not. Senator Akpabio should resign from that position.
You think Senator Natasha has said enough, has given enough evidence to support?
It's not just Senator Natasha, for God's sake.
Right.
The first time he had a challenge with Senator Natasha was when he called her a club lady.
No, I think
he
said
that this is not a club, meaning.
And then he recanted, and then he apologized.
He recanted and apologized later.
Right,
I mean, I saw the apology.
Yeah.
I mean, the apology has been played over. What about Senator Ireti Kingibe?
I think he has apologized multiple times.
So when you have a Senate president who is constantly apologizing for his
you think
words,
those remarks are big enough to, make him leave that seat as Senate president?
Beyond that, just take a look at how he handled the issues he had with Senator Yari at the beginning. Because many people have forgotten. I haven't. Look at the way he handled the state. And remember the remarks of Senator Yari at the time. Look at the way he handled the issue of Senator Ndume. Look at the way he handled the issue with Senator Ningi. Of course, they always have this, let me borrow your word, colorful way of managing themselves, and they will say, oh, it's a family affair.
I guess then it's not an Akpabio issue, because whatever he says is apparently the popular view, or at least the opinion of the majority in the Nigerian Senate.
No, it's not always the voice or the opinion of the majority, because if you look at each of those scenarios, you will always find 6, 7, 8, 9 senators who approach the bench to either correct him or ask him to toe a different line. I've heard many times that even Senator Dume will stand up and tell Mr. President, I think you should please calm down. Mr. President, please calm down. I remember one time that he was making a statement. It was the same him who told the senators that they've sent, what's that language he used? Email. I mean, how did he put it?
Yeah.
My point here is this. I'm not saying that Senator Akpabio is a good man, is a lovely man, but he's deficient in certain areas.
Right.
Leadership, calls for higher responsibility. To be a Senate president means that you are the first amongst the 109 senators, and you represent the country. He has the singular privilege as the Senate president to fly our Air Force One. He has the singular president to be called Your Excellency. Please, sir, with all due respect, there are things that we should not, gloss over or wish away. Yes, tomorrow, whatever they may come up with, they may handle it, and he will come out again and apologize. His ability to apologize publicly also shows that he's learning to be teachable. But he cannot prevent this constant apology. We see speakers of the House of Commons. We see the Senate presidents in the US and the other. How many times do they apologize? A man who leads people must be willing, must be ready to listen.
Right.
Your job primarily is to listen. You control proceedings. You shouldn't get into shouting match. Do you remember when Speaker Bankole, the Major Bankole was Speaker? Do you know how many times House members spoke out of order? You see the Major Bankole, he will listen with a smack on his face. Then when you're done, he will say, Honorable so and so and so, I'm going to rule you out of order because first, you have breached even the privilege that you're trying to abuse.
Right.
Because this lady came on Order 10. Order 10 is the privilege of the Senate. When anybody speaks on privilege, the Senate president should listen, then correct the person. You don't shut the person, then say you're suspended, then say remove. Come on now.
Right. Okay. Finally, because this is as dramatic as it is quite exhausting to discuss, but a lot of people have had their say. The likes of Atiku Abubakar have joined the conversation. Former president of the Senate, Senator Bukola Saraki, has also weighed in, but a lot of people will say it's laced with some political jabs here and there. But the Arewa Consultative Forum was the latest to join the conversation. It's called for an independent investigation into the sexual harassment allegations made by Senator Natasha against the Senate president. It said, quote, the National Assembly must always display exemplary behavior, personal discipline, and integrity, qualities that seem to be in deficit in the way the 10th Senate is being run. Going forward, the next couple of days and weeks would prove to be crucial, but Nigerians might not necessarily hold their breath because we've seen bigger scandals being swept under the carpet. How do you see this whole saga ending?
Well, I do not expect a lot because the likes of myself have seen this Senate as one of the worst rubber stamp Senate we've had.
You think the jury is out already, less than 2 years?
I think so. I think so. The reality is that Nigerians are living in, harrowing, are going through a harrowing experience right now. Nigerians are suffering. And unfortunately, our elected officials are misbehaving. They are behaving like children. They are not discussing things that will better the lot of Nigerians. They are quick to pass bills that does not favor Nigerians or benefit Nigerians with lightning speed. But that which will benefit Nigerians, does not take the front burner. They are quick to increase, taxes on Nigerians across level, electricity tax, name it. The DSTV and the rest of them are increasing their fees. These are all taxes Nigerians are paying. Telecom taxes are going up. I mean, for example, sir, these members in the parliament are supposed to hold all these companies accountable. When you buy data of 50 gig for a month, it will not last 1 week. But when you go abroad and buy 50 gig, you will always roll over. Always. And you watch movies and all kinds of things with it. Here in Nigeria, just regular social media, whatever, in a week is gone. Yeah. How do you explain that? And they are not holding them accountable. So the challenge we have is that we have parliamentarians who do not understand their responsibilities. They are more interested in going to their constituency to buy motorcycles, to buy fridges, to buy sewing machine for people who will never use it. So unfortunately, this is where we've found ourselves. I believe that the president should call Akpabio and have a sit down with him. Many of us bash Senator Ahmed tinubu a lot, but there are certain things you will not hear about him. This type of thing, if in all his years as senator, governor, and leader, and you can't hear this. But I mean, for God's sake, Akpabio, NDC man, the same story. Senator Abba now is becoming one too many.
Be interesting to see how this all comes to a logical conclusion, if at all that is what we are going to expect from this one. Mr. Osemeka, as always, thank you for a very interesting conversation. I appreciate you for joining us this Monday morning. Thank you so much for stopping by.